idea is that local action by communities, this idea about placemaking that a lot of people don't know about, but they also think it's only about physical space. And certainly what has happened in the United States is that placemaking has become so much more. So there's the product, the place, and there's the making, which is the action. And placemaking has become so much about the making, the action, because of the way it empowers communities. It builds social capital and political capital and gets things done. And that is applicable all over the globe, this very local action that can affect positive change. And that's an idea worth spreading. So an example is an example I used in my talk, which is a neighborhood in San Francisco that had a 6-lane speedway really running through it, a street everyone was using as a kind of commuter shortcut. And neighbors didn't know each other across the divide because of the traffic. Cars were regularly crashing into homes. Neighbors didn't feel it was safe for the kids to go out. And one neighbor decided to take action. No prior experience. She started knocking on neighbors' doors and saying, we don't have to put up with this. Let's see what we can do. And they were able to get the roadway reduced from 6 lanes to 4. They had bike lanes put in, they lowered the speed limit, and then they got a planning grant and worked with the city of San Francisco to actually design a park where the median once was in the roadway using recycled and low-cost materials. And in the process, the community came together because they had to maintain the space. So they had to look at how they were going to water the plants and weed the garden. And all of that built social and political capital for them that got things done. And they paid for half the cost of the park themselves. And that all took, that built a lot of skills for the community. So the more that they did and they accomplished, the more confident they became, the more skills that developed, the more people that were included, till one point they really felt like they could accomplish anything. And that is an amazing place for a community to be. It's about looking around you. It's about not only looking at the international and the national news, but reading the local news, looking around you, noticing something that needs to be changed, and figuring out what is something you can do. And it may be kind of cheap and quick, but what can you do to affect change? And everyone can do that. It's called tactical urbanism. Other words that are used are lighter, quicker, cheaper. Don't wait for government. Don't wait for the big plan. Go out and make something happen, even if it's only temporary. You know, I'm a city planner, and so I work with communities all the time. And I've worked on a lot of plans that are really dependent on who's in office. So I might spend 6 months working on an arts district plan or a revitalization plan, and then the mayor gets voted out of office and the plan goes on the shelf, and so much is dependent on government. And this is a very different model. This is a grassroots model that doesn't say government doesn't belong, but I think of placemaking as a space rather than a plan. A space where people come together to collaborate, to find partners, and to do various things. And it's a much more efficient way of doing things, and you're much more likely to get the smaller pieces done when you have the local community on board than if you're waiting for the grand plan and the money coming from government. And so it's very satisfying to see short-term action that really makes a difference instead of everyone waiting for the big capital expenditure by government. That often doesn't happen. This new model needs a new kind of planning mentality in city government. The savvy public officials not only get it, but they want it, because it's a much more resource and time-efficient model to go right to communities to understand what they need. But in order to do it, it takes a slightly different look at what the framework looks like and the institutional processes, and I really think that's where we are right now. How do governments adjust how they do business in order to accommodate this? And it's not that they don't want to, but I think many of them are grappling with, what does this look like? How does this fit into our planning agenda? So I think that those are some of the next steps. And for me, it's just working one community at a time. We change things a little bit at a time, and it's incremental. And I think that slow and steady wins the race.